Hey everyone! Thanks for joining us on Asking for a Friend, a podcast for women created by New Hope Community Church. The phrase and hashtag asking for a friend is used in sarcasm after asking an embarrassing question, indicating that it's so awkward it must be asked under the guise of a helpful friend. This discussion group was born out of a desire to talk openly about things that are often considered taboo or stay hidden in general, but especially in the church. Statistics show that the issues we will cover affect women within the church as much as those who don't consider themselves churchgoers, so let's talk about them. The first and very simple purpose of this group is to let women know that they are not alone. Across social media and even in person, we always show the best of ourselves, leading us to believe that nobody else has the same struggles as we do. This is such a lonely feeling and only leads to discouragement. This is a lie that we hope to expose by the time our discussion is over. Also, studies show that one of the reasons current generations don't consider going to church is that the church is not open to messy discussions and believe that Christians think they have all the answers. The second purpose of this discussion group is to show that this group of women admits we don't have simple solutions to life's questions, and we recognize that we never arrive, but will be working through these issues during our lifelong journey. The third purpose of this group is to give practical suggestions and spiritual counsel to others based on the experience of our guests and the resources we've put together. Specifically, we will recommend resources from Right Now Media, a video resource library called the Netflix of Bible Studies. For your free access, text Right Now space NHCCMN to 41411. As we listen to one another's stories and are bold in sharing our own, we can create a community where we are all fully known and fully loved. Because this is a safe space and the issues are sensitive, we will not be sharing the names of our guests. If you have questions about a particular guest or story, please contact us and we will connect you. So today's session is called Close to the Brokenhearted, and we will be talking about the topic of grief. And the verse that I wrote out for this session is Psalm 34, starting at verse 17. The righteous cry out and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. A righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. And some of the Right Now Media resources that I have been watching leading up to this is one called Anchors for the Soul by John Mark Hicks, Love and Loss by Chuck and Ashley Elliott, Grief and Suffering by Dr. Chuck Betters, and Beyond Suffering by Johnny Erickson Tata, who we probably all know who that is. And then any other resources that our guests mentioned here today, we'll put in the comments then after this, if there's anything specific you guys that helped you through or that you want to recommend. So let's get started. We have 9 friends watching with us, so it's going to be a good discussion. Let's just, I want to start by saying that I think one of the reasons churches don't talk about this is because it's just hard and it can be awkward to know just how to respond to someone who's grieving in general. And, I've lost 2 grandparents that were close to me, but never experienced a very significant loss like I think some of you have. And, sometimes it's hard to know, do I sit there and just be present? Do I say, I'm sorry, what do you say? And so, kind of the purpose of this group is to ask these ladies, what has been your experience and what can we do as sisters in Christ to help support people going through these things? And we just had last week our discussion on healing and prayer, which was great. We had wonderful ladies here. And so that might be something that's parallel, to this discussion. But one of the ladies said that she thought it was interesting that Jesus grieved the death of Lazarus knowing that he was going to raise him back to life. Mm-hmm. And, we see Jesus in grief in the garden when he knows he's going to sacrifice himself. And we see, different parts of the Bible where Jesus grieves and Jesus is a reflection of God. And so I think if Jesus can grieve, we're allowed to grieve. And then just the other Sunday, I think it was Pastor John said that, or maybe it was Bill, I know Bill loves the Psalms of David when he's lamenting. They're the Psalms of Lament. And it was like there are more Psalms of lament than any other kinds, than of praise and all that. And so one thing I found said that there are 42 Psalms of lament, and 30 of them are for an individual, a personal, and then other ones are corporate, grieving on behalf of a group. But so it's like, you know what? The Bible has it in there, you know, chock full. Jesus experienced it. So I just think there's no shame or any, you know, in expressing our anger or our hurt or anything like that. Like, here we are, you know, we're people. So, all right, I think we're going to start with our friend here, and we're just going to talk about what was your experience, what led up to this time of grief. And you've had a couple different things that you want.
A couple different ones. I'm going to start with one from several years ago. And that was a good friend that many people know, and that was when Annie Maltrud passed away. And when Annie got sick, one of the things, I was very angry because I felt that wasn't fair of God to take somebody who was such a godly woman, a fantastic teacher, a wonderful friend, and in the what you would call the prime of life, you know, with 2 kids, and he didn't heal her, and why wouldn't he heal her? Yeah. And that was very frustrating. In 2015, my best friend was diagnosed with a glioblastoma and terminal. And so we celebrated her 50th birthday in Abbott Northwestern, and she didn't really go home. She went home for a little bit after that, but walking beside her, going to treatments with her, dealing with all of that, and then eventually seeing her deteriorate where she didn't know who we were, and a person who was very kind and very sweet and just loved people became angry and defensive and would hit out at people when they tried to help her. I was angry with God for that too because it didn't seem fair. Yeah. It wasn't fair. She had gone through a messy divorce, was getting back on her feet, was in school, doing everything that would be great to start her adult life after her kids were done with school, and she lasted. The doctors told us 10 months, and it was almost 10 months exactly that she passed away. And so that was a really hard one. I still deal with that. We still miss her horribly. But the recent one for me is walking with my dad, and that closeness. And my dad had been sick. He had cancer. I think it was 11 years before this one. This was in 2015, so it was 11 years before that. So 2004, I think, was his first round of cancer, and he recovered after that one. And then this came in 2011 or 2015, and they told us it wasn't the same, wasn't related. And then when they went into surgery, it was related, and then they said it would potentially be terminal. And so we were preparing for that, and he went through surgery, recovered from the surgery. And they told us to prepare that he wouldn't go much longer, and we ended up with almost 4 years. So we're very thankful, a little over 4 years for that. But during that process, there were so many ups and downs. There were so many, how much longer is it going to be? But at the time, he would not have had time with my youngest niece if he would have passed away in 2015 or 16, and he was able to at least have pictures and time with her as a toddler and preschooler. But with that process came hospice. And I think sometimes hospice is the most amazing thing, and it's also the hardest thing. That staff is incredible. They will do anything for you, but you're playing a waiting game. It's always waiting. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And my dad was only 70. He had just turned 70 when we found out the information that he was terminal and that it had spread, and put him on hospice a week before his birthday. And watching him deteriorate, watching my mom take care of him, and because she refused to let anybody else take care of him. And when you're talking through the grief and going through the stages of grief, I'm still not sure where I am in that stage because I'm a doer. I get things done. That's my job. I'm the oldest child. I'm the oldest daughter. My job is to get things done. My job was to get my mom, to take care of my mom, make sure my mom had the support she needed, making sure my brothers, my sister, my kids, my husband, everybody else had support, my sisters-in-law. And so making sure things were planned, and it was going to be a good funeral. Everything was going to be perfect, because that's what my dad would have expected from me. And so I never cried. The night I was with him, the night he died, it was my mom and I. We laugh and kind of giggle about it because he was not a Harry Potter fan, but Mom and I decided to do a Harry Potter marathon as long as we're going to stay up with him, because we knew it wasn't going to be a lot longer. The signs were there, and I just figured he didn't want to watch Harry Potter. So it wasn't long after that, my mom sat by his side, held his hand. We had prayed with him, we'd read scripture, we had sang with him, and then we tucked him in for the evening, and we got comfortable, and it wasn't very long before my mom goes, I think he stopped breathing. So I did the checks, and again, where you're the oldest, you just do it. I was there for the coroners when the coroners came, or not the coroners, but the funeral home. When they came, I dealt with that. My sister couldn't deal with it. It was so I didn't have time to cry, and through the whole planning process, I didn't have time to cry. And so I think I'm still waiting for that ugly cry. I don't think it's ever. Every once in a while, something will hit and I'll have a good cry, but it's not that deep grief. And then the pandemic hit. About the time my mom was going to be able to start doing things again. Now she's stuck at home. So not being with my mom.
You said it was December.
December 26th. Yep. And so, and we had the funeral because my son was home on leave, so we wanted to have the funeral before he had to go back to the base. And so it was. We went away for Girls' Weekend in January, and then we spent some time with Mom going through things and doing things, and then the pandemic hit and everything shut down. So I don't think some of us haven't been together a lot to go through those grieving processes, which I think we will have to do here at some point. But again, like I said, I had to get things done, and my mom's the same way. We had to get things done, and Dad wanted it this way, and so things had to be done. And then sometimes it was hard for me in some ways because this is not my biological father. It's my father, but it's my stepdad. And my siblings are all his biological children. And so in that 5 years or 4 years between when he was first diagnosed or got sick a second time, when he started showing symptoms, we were on a trip to Europe. I'd gone with my parents to Europe for 3 weeks, and it was a fantastic trip. And my dad and I ironed out a lot of things on that trip. Years of just... My dad was a very opinionated person. I'm an opinionated person. And sometimes we didn't agree.
Right.
And so we dealt with some of that and some of the issues of him when he adopted me and some of those things. And so I think in some ways God was directing some of those things because Dad and I had those times and we sat and he shared things with me and shared things with my kids. And those things almost brought more tears than the actual loss of my father. He told my kids how cute I was when he first met me, but how stubborn I was, and I didn't want him part of my mom's life, and and so sharing some of those things. So we kind of laughed about those things. But the grateful part of me is my dad was a very strong man of faith, and my dad knew where he was going. He knew what happened after this life, and he was not scared. He wanted to stay here. He wanted to be with us, but he also wanted to go on. If he wasn't going to be healed, he was ready to go. And so that was assuring for us. And when his church came to, the people from the Stevens ministry came to sit with him, and he said, well, you know what, I'm good. I know where I'm going. You don't need to be praying with me. Who can we pray for in the church? Because that was my dad. And that was helpful. And I think sometimes I feel that if I break down, I'm disappointing him. So I think in that way I don't want to, because he was always that you gotta go and do. So, so I think in some ways that grief has not gone where it should go. So,
how's your mom doing? How's she?
She's strong.
Yeah.
My mom bought a Segway this summer.
Okay. A little scooter bike.
She goes, oh yeah, because hospice was hard for her because she felt that she needed to be with my dad, but also at the same time, she's not one to sit still very well.
Yeah.
She went down. They were snowbirds for 1 year, 2 months, 1 month really. And my mom said, "This is for old people. I'm not doing this anymore." She goes, "I can't sit still."
Yeah.
And my dad said it was like entertaining a toddler. So he said, "No, we're not doing this again." But that was good. They got. My mom and dad made experiences. They traveled. They did things.
Yeah.
They didn't wait for retirement, which I'm so thankful for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have so many fantastic family memories that helps so much. And I guess my thing with advice is don't wait for retirement. Don't wait to have enough money. Don't wait till this happens. If you want to do something and you can possibly make it work, do it, because you'll never get that time back again.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for those memories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yep. YOLO. Seize the day.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Okay, I'm ready. So I have experienced a bit of loss myself. I lost my mom when I was 33. She was 56. She passed from a brain aneurysm. It was quite quick and sudden, and I was young and had young kids, and it was in a really different time in my life, and I don't know, I grieved, I think probably not in a healthy way. And then I think it was 10 years ago, I lost my dad to cancer. He lived in Florida at the time, and that was a pretty quick thing. He got sick, he was hospitalized. By the time we went down there, and he just had 7 days before he passed. He stayed in hospice for 1 day.
Oh wow!
And it was an amazing experience. They really treated him good, treated us good. It was very peaceful, loving, amazing way to go, I guess. And then let's see, May 1st of, I won't get the year right. 6 years ago, I lost my daughter to cancer. And she was 31 at the time. She had had cancer 2 years previously. It was cervical cancer, and she had surgery, didn't do any radiation. They got everything was good, and then 2 years later, it returned in her lung. And because Jenny had a blood condition, she couldn't do chemotherapy. She did 1 round of chemotherapy, and it wasn't good. She couldn't handle it. So that.
What year was that?
That I'm not good at counting back
That's
years.
okay.
14?
I met her one time, I think in the summer of 2014. She was here, and that was the only time I met her at service. But I was going through all my epilepsy stuff and figuring out my diagnosis and lots of hospitals and stuff. So I just got to thank her for sharing her story. I think you guys did a video.
Oh, her and her husband did a video.
Testimony video.
Yep, did a testimony.
Yeah.
I think that was shortly before she passed. Yeah, she was quite sick at the time
Yeah.
when she did that. So she actually, I think it was 9 months from the time of her second diagnosis, and she had part of her lung removed. It spread. It was in her brain and just various parts of her body. Jenny was a very lively, vivacious young lady, and she had a lot of spark, and she loved the Lord, and that I'm very grateful for. And yeah, she touched a lot of lives. I like to say that cancer didn't win, because cancer only wins if you refuse to continue living and just lay down and die. You know, so Jenny wanted to live. In fact, we went skydiving the day after, or the day before she had her lung surgery, or 2 days before she had. So
There you go.
she called us up and said, we're going skydiving, and I'm like, we are not.
Your seize the day. Yeah.
So yeah, we did a lot of really fun things and spent some really good quality time together. But yeah, the grieving is, there is no right way of doing it. There is no wrong way of doing it. I've learned a lot. I think many things I've learned, but I think I've really learned how to, or I hope I have, to reach out to others who have lost, because those things that people would say or not intending to, but just were sometimes kind of painful or whatever, so I think I've learned a lot about how to reach out to other people,
empathize.
hopefully.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's my story in a nutshell.
Yeah, we talked a little bit before we started about the stages of grief. And I don't know if we listed all 7 of them, but but anger and denial and questioning and
Guilt.
all those.
Yeah.
But
Accepting.
Acceptance. We're talking about how you can go through them, circle back, stay stuck on one. There's a whole and everybody does things differently.
Yeah.
So
there's no set time,
No.
it's that you're going to go through this or that, or and now I'm done, or it's just it's I think especially and all loss is horrible and everything, but I think especially with losing a child, it's like it just never never goes away, and it has changed me. It's changed me as a person in many ways.
Will you say more about that? That was one of my questions.
I think, in negative ways, it has changed me. I do have clinical depression and anxiety, I think in positive ways, I think I like to try to, see things in the moment and know that, things are not going to be here necessarily forever. Things can, change in a blink of an eye. And my faith has never disappeared or gone away. I have questioned. I have been angry. I have, in fact, asked. Maybe I even put it on last week about healing and what happens when God doesn't. And I really struggled with that, and I still do sometimes. It's like our God of miracles didn't yours. I know He can, but He didn't. And that can be that's hard.
That was a good discussion last week.
Or that was the week before. Last week was the type A, the type, or whatever that personality.
That's right.
My one fun discussion.
So.
And things just coming up when you don't expect it, like different songs or driving by something, or like I have my grandma's. She had a little glass candy, and I loved it. And so when she died, I got to keep it. And so it's in my bathroom, and most days, you get ready and I don't really think about it. And then when I see it, I'm like, oh, and it makes me really emotional. And it's like a jar of candy, glass candy. Or like the song, I'm Going Home, Where the Streets Are Golden, whatever. She died at the time when that was popular, and I was like, I can't listen to that song. It makes me really sad. So, but I don't know, did you have weird things? Or
still
it
do.
like triggers you?
So one Sunday in church, I'm at the soundboard, and the song, I can't think of the name right now, but if I hear it, I know it. The 100 Million Stars,
a million billion times.
And he can look at those, so should I, or whatever. And that was a song we put on the video for my dad. And And just little things, because like one night I was on my computer and I was just having a rough time with school and with everything going on right now. And I don't know why, because apparently my computer has a mind of its own. All of a sudden my dad's video started playing. I never touched it. I didn't turn it on. I didn't do anything. I lost it. I mean, I was crying and I don't know why. I mean, just one of those little things. And my husband came out like, "Are you okay? You need to go to bed." I'm like, "Yeah, I do need to go to bed." But just that little trigger. But
and some things that are just not even really related. It's just it's kind of like reminds me of like maybe minor PTSD. Where it's like just all of a sudden, whoa, and just something just.
I created the video. I didn't cry once the whole time I put that video together, and then a bunch of times I watched it. But this one night last fall set me off. So
Totally. And then other medical stuff, because you've had losses since then, and that's
yes, and I didn't even go to that. I just lost my father-in-law the 24th to COVID.
Well, and I remember when your husband's mother died.
And my
that was not
mother-in-law
that long ago.
died 2 years ago.
So a lot in it.
Yeah.
And that can trigger losses from the past.
Oh, definitely does.
You want to go ahead and talk?
Yes, when I was 27 years old, I'm 69 right now, or I guess still 69. And when I was 27 years old, I found out that I was pregnant. And my husband and I had been trying to conceive for quite a while. And I remember I was so excited that I couldn't wait. My parents were out with some friends of theirs for the evening. And when I found out, did the test, before actually going to the doctor, but found out I was pregnant, I couldn't wait till the next day to tell them. So we tracked them down wherever they were with their friends. And my mom's like, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I'm going, "Well, I've got news to tell you." And I'm like, "I'm pregnant." And of course, she was beside herself, and my father too. They knew that I'd been trying for quite some time. So I was really excited and went to the doctor and then started the whole procedure and went through my first trimester and everything seemed to be going okay. I was really nauseated, very sick. I remember going to work. We lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the time, and I took a streetcar going to work, and I remember every morning sitting on the streetcar eating crackers because I thought, "Please, Lord, don't let me throw up." So anyway, everything seemed to be going great. And then I started having some complications, and I had started some bleeding. And so then I went to the doctor, and he put me on bed rest and told me that he did not want me working. So I went on bed rest. I was on bed rest for, I guess, about almost a month. And I had sonograms. I went and had sonograms done every week just to check how everything was going. And, for the first few weeks, everything was okay, and the spotting had stopped, and we just thought everything was going to be okay. And then I went to the following week, and the doctor couldn't find a heartbeat. And so I was told then that the child had died in my uterus. And I was just, hearing those words, I guess I just really didn't believe it. And they thought that I would go ahead and abort the baby on my own. And unfortunately I didn't. So it became where my life was becoming in danger. So I walked into a hospital pregnant and came out without a child. And I remember the nurses coming to me and saying, "Oh, don't worry about it. It'll be okay. In a few months you can try again, and you'll have plenty of children." And I worked through the process. It was very, very difficult. When I first got home, I had people trying to, lift me up in my spirits. My church was wonderful, my pastor and my church family, and I have a very strong faith from a circumstance that I went through in my life when I was in my early 20s. I say now I run to God when things get tough, and God was there for me, and I feel that he had a purpose for my life, and from that experience that really helped me with dealing with my grief from losing a child that I really, really wanted. And it's like a friend of mine sent me, she does pregnancy loss counseling also, and she sent me this testimony of a woman, and it said, there's a club of mothers that we all hope to never join, and of which far too many are silent members. We are the women who have lost a child we never even met, a child for whom we have no memories, no pictures of happy smiles, or stories of budding personalities, just the grief of what might have been. And that really speaks to a lot of women that go through pregnancy loss, because it is so true. And I ended up, my husband and I did counseling at a hospital for pregnancy loss, and that did help me. And then a year later, I went to the doctor. I was having some problems, and because of complications from the pregnancy loss, I was told that I needed a complete hysterectomy. And so then I started the grief process all over again, because of the fact that I would not ever be able to conceive a child. And I really thought that was, that was a double whammy, that it just triggered me back to losing a child and then being told you can never have another child. It was very difficult. My husband was really supportive at the beginning, but as years passed, it became very, very difficult, and he started drinking very heavily, and our relationship eventually did end up in divorce. And when we were legally separated, I was doing pregnancy loss counseling. A girlfriend of mine and we started, she had a stillbirth, and we had shared our stories, and so we got involved with an organization called SHARE, which stands for a Source of Help and Resolving Experiences. And it was started by a Catholic nun who was in a hospital with women who had gone through pregnancy loss, and she was trying to comfort them. Her name was Sister Jane Marie, and she worked at a hospital outside of Chicago, and she was trying to comfort these women, but then thought, I've never been married, I really can't relate. So she started this organization called SHARE, and it's a national organization. It's all over the United States now, different chapters. And so we started, my girlfriend and I got involved in that, and we started our own little SHARE chapter in Pittsburgh. And then when I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, I started doing it there. And I was getting through the health department, getting leads on going and speaking to women who had gone through pregnancy loss. And at the time, and this woman and I got to be very good friends. And I had a neighbor later on who called me and said that her teenage daughter was pregnant. And she, of course, had gone through my loss with me when I lost the baby, because she was an old neighbor of mine. And she wanted her daughter to come and live with me my husband, and for the last 3 months of the pregnancy, and that Tracy would be signing the child over to me. And I explained to Myra that my husband and I were separated, that we were going through some difficulties in our marriage, and she said, well, just think about it. Well, I literally wanted to, I wanted a child so bad that you could almost cut your arm off. But this woman at the health department there in town, who gave me my leads for counseling, she was a very dear friend, and she needed to be totally honest with me, and I needed to hear the honesty, because she told me that if I went through this and adopted this child, that it would put a broken marriage back together. Mm-hmm. So and she was totally right. I thought about it, and I did realize, that this would be a child that needed to have a father and a mother. Mm-hmm. So I contacted my doctor went through my pregnancy loss, and he did infertility counseling, and he hooked my neighbor up with a couple that no longer could have children. And this child of Tracy's went to this couple. So I had a lot of different emotions going through at that time, but doing that really helped me. And I'm not saying that it doesn't come back to haunt me from time to time. It does, and I think of what could have been, and the future, and just all the things, like you say, in this text that my girlfriend sent me, that we are the women who have lost a child we've never even met. But I think the important thing is that through it all, and my faith, which really kept it all together for me, and you don't understand the whys, but sometimes we never know. Only God knows. And I was able, at the age of 48, I did eventually get remarried, and to a wonderful person, and we were married for 5 years, and I told him when we were dating that because I couldn't have children, that I was going to be a mom. I was going to be a mom, and that I wanted to adopt, and that if he was not interested in this, that this relationship really wasn't going to go anywhere. And he was, and so after we were married for 5 years, I went to Russia, and I adopted a toddler, because at that time I was 48, so I thought, we were qualified to adopt a baby, but I thought I had to look at the future and my age, and I thought, I don't want, if something happens to me, I want this child to, at least be older to take care of himself, and because both my parents were deceased. And so anyway, at 48 years old, I became a mom, and it was the best experience of my life. So it just, through faith and through the grief process, and I think the good thing that came out of it is the pregnancy loss counseling, and even today, I'm not involved in it anymore, but I can share my story with women that I find out are going through something like that, if they want to talk. And I think the most important thing about the grieving process, it's not, everybody thinks they've got to come up with the right thing to say, the perfect thing to say that's going to make the person feel better. And in my experience, the best thing in learning from this pregnancy loss counseling, it's not what you say, it's your presence that means everything. Because you let that individual, let them share. If they want to open up, let them open up. But you just be there so that they have comfort knowing that you're there, and whatever way, and take your lead from them. Because you've not walked in their pain. And I think that's one of the best experiences that I found from my whole experience. But I'm very proud. My son is just turned in October 24 years old, and he knows he knows that I told him, I said, you weren't born in my tummy, you were born in my heart. And I said, but he does know that I lost a child, and he does know he is my second child. But the greatest peace that I have is that I know when it's time that God calls me home, is that I have a peace that when I get to heaven, that there's going to be a child that's going to tap me on the shoulder and say, hi, Mom. And that just really brings a smile to my face and brings me true peace.
Yeah.
So that's my story.
Yeah. I think it's so common too. It's like 1 out of 4 ladies, or 1 out of 3.
Yeah, because we had twins.
Yeah.
Our second one was a twin, and we lost the twin.
Yeah.
And so then again, when you're talking about the grief, I don't feel like we grieved, because I had 2 sister-in-laws who both lost babies the same year, at the same time, and we were operating at the same time. I came home with a baby. Not 2, but I came home with 1, and they came home with none.
Right.
So I always felt like, we didn't have the right to grieve for the one
Right.
missing. But I look at my daughter, she's turning 28 next week, and I'm going, there should be 2 of you.
Yeah.
There should have been another boy. We should have 2 of
Right.
each, and we didn't.
Right.
Then when you said the tapping on the shoulder, that's what I'm waiting for, to see that
Yes.
little boy that I never got to hold in my arms.
And that's, and that's why, it's, and just being able to adopt this little boy that his yes, as he's gotten older and teenage years, there have been a lot of challenges, and it's like, gosh, my hair's getting grayer and grayer, but it was such a great experience, and I learned a lot. I mean, my faith, I just feel like in life that all the ups and downs and the mountains and valleys, I mean, that God is just teaching me so many things to learn from it. Doesn't mean that it's easy, but I think the thing is, it's just like in the Bible, Jesus wept, and God knows that we're human, and He knows our feelings and why we're upset, and He understands. And one of my favorite poems is Footprints in the Sand. When He is, why is there only one set of footprints, Lord? Because that's the time that I was carrying you. And He is there, always.
You guys were both nodding when she talked about just being there and sitting with somebody. Was that your experience, that was one of the best things that somebody could do?
I think the worst is when people are like, they think they can, fix you or what can I do for you? What can, and it's like, no, I just need somebody to be with me. I don't need, maybe I want to talk about Jenny, maybe I don't, and I met a friend who, a woman from church who had, shortly after Jenny passed, lost her husband, and we just clicked over our loss, and at times we'd talk about our loss, and so at times we didn't, and it was just a bond that we shared. And I think that that's something that all this tragedy, this loss, this pain has equipped me and has equipped others with loss to be able to be there for others, and when you were talking about the grief share and that, I was thinking about, I went to a group for a while called Compassionate Friends, which is for loss of a child, and I think that was really helpful to me. I got a lot out of it, and we talked about a lot of the stages of grief, and just the different anniversaries, and just being able to share that with other people that knew
that could relate to what you had been through, right?
Was really good, but
and that's why I think it's so important just to be there, because like I said, you're trying to fix you or whatever. They mean well, but it doesn't help because they haven't walked through your pain. And yet, I think when with the support group that you went to, and then me finding out about Share, and of course now what they're doing now with Share, and they didn't have this back when I went through it. You can actually hold your child, or you can take pictures, you can, and it's totally up to whatever the parents want to do.
Right.
So, I mean, those are things that, I don't, back in my day, you didn't have, of course I had a nurse that said, oh, don't worry about it, you'll have plenty of kids. Well, it's like I wanted to go back to that nurse a year later when I was told I had to have a hysterectomy. Now what do you have to say? And then when I got home from the hospital after I lost, the baby, I had a neighbor that came over, and she meant well, and I know that. But she came and said, well, come on, we need to get you out of the house. We're going to go visit Karen, neighbor down the street. She just had a baby. And then she stopped in her tracks, and she goes, guess that wouldn't be a good idea. You might want to steal it.
Yeah.
Oh.
But that was Carrie. You had to know Carrie. She meant well, but she always kind of stuck her foot in her mouth. And it's just like I said, but that was one of the best things I learned in my doing, counseling with other women, is that I would just share my story and then sit there and let it go from there. And if they wanted to open up, that was great. If they had questions, whatever. But I think that was the greatest part of the grief process, is just your presence.
Well, one of the things when people said something that didn't help, is when they would lean over and go, "Oh, I know how you feel."
Oh yeah.
No, you don't.
No. Yeah.
I'm sorry. You know,
Yeah.
I should say, I mean, that sounds rude to say that you don't know how I feel. But until you've walked exactly in my shoes, I can empathize with your loss of a child.
Yeah.
I can empathize with your loss of a child. You can empathize with my loss of a father. But you don't know exactly how I feel.
Right.
You know, you don't know. We all have histories. We all have things that happened in our life that put us on the track that we're on. And sometimes we lose a parent when there's things that have been unforgiven.
Yeah.
Or,
Exactly.
you know, hurts that haven't been resolved. Or, so you look at that and go, well, you don't know what I'm really feeling.
Yeah.
Right.
And I had a friend, and I know she meant well, but she's another one of those friends, and she says things, but quite often it doesn't quite go the way she maybe wants it to go.
Right.
But her aunt had cancer, recovered, was doing great, and she says, "Oh, I know just how you feel, and my aunt did this, and my aunt did that," and she interrupted my conversation to tell me that, and I'm like, but I'm just sharing with you that my dad was just put on hospice. We just heard the news 3 days ago that he's not going to get better, that it's spread to other parts of his body. And so, no, you don't know how I feel. But then when I found the verse I was thinking of, because right now I'm reading a chapter of Luke every day, the 24 chapters of Luke for every day of December. And earlier this week, it was... and I don't know how you miss some of these things when you read the Bible. You come back and you read it again, and you're like, "Wow, how did I miss that?"
Often.
I know, right? So in Luke chapter 7, Jesus raises a widow's son. And as I'm reading through that, I'm like, well, yeah, I know all these miracles that he did and all these different things. But in verse 13, I think it is, my eyes got very good. When the Lord saw her, this woman, they were carrying her son out. She was a widow. This was her only son. And when the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, "Don't cry." Then he went up and touched the bier that they were carrying him on, and the bearer stood still, and, "Young man, I say to you, get up." That part isn't as amazing to me as the part where Jesus looked at her and said, he felt his heart, in his heart, he felt her pain. Mm-hmm. So when I think about that, it tells me that God is seeing my pain. Yeah. He was here. He was fully human and fully God.
Right.
He knows the pain that we're going through.
Right.
So when we run away from him in our pain, it's counterproductive to our healing. Mm-hmm. You know, we should be running to him because he understands the pain. God, sent his son to the cross.
Right.
He knows how we feel. He knows he lost a child. Yeah.
He has those human qualities that we have, and so that's what helps me too, because he was here as a human, and he does understand. And
so it makes me think that when he sees my heart breaking over whatever, he's looking at me going, "Don't cry. I've got this."
Right.
It may not be healing. Mm-hmm. It may not be what we want it to be.
Right.
But he's got this. Right. And so that verse always, why did I ever miss that verse? I know but maybe because at this moment in my life, that's what I needed to hear, and that's what I needed to see. And so I thought I would share that. I kept bringing it up on my phone so it wouldn't disappear, because I never can remember the references to verses.
Yeah. Well, one that struck me, I do, when I do my devotions, if there's something when I'm reading the Bible that really strikes me, and it's like God's telling you, this is one you need to write down. I write it down. And so, I know some people, when they get angry, they count to 10. I say Bible verses.
Yep.
and I do that on a daily basis. And the one that I just came across a couple of weeks ago was John 16:33, where Jesus says to his disciples that he's talking to them because he's getting ready to go to God, and that he's saying, "In this, and I tell you these things, so that in me you may find peace. That in this world there will be troubles, but take heart, I have overcome the world." And that just really spoke volumes to me. And I think with all the craziness that goes on with everything's the mountains, the valleys, we need to take heart. I have overcome the world. That He will never leave us nor forsake us. That He will always, be there. Like what was it, Psalm 147, verse 3. God heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. And I think that. That I'm just grateful that for those that have faith, and I really pray that those people that are going through loss or difficulties in life, that they really will open up their heart, or whether somebody says something or some experience or whatever, that their heart will be opened, because He's knocking at the door. We just, He's not going to say, okay, I'm coming in. No, we have to invite Him in, and He's really will be there for us. And I know from my own personal experience, and things that I've gone through, even since the loss of a child, or even prior to that, that He really is He is there, and He will always be there.
I love the verse where it says He bends His ear.
Yeah, right,
so
exactly.
Yes, child?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's so cool.
Right.
So, did you have any verses or anything that you kind of...
In one of my devotions I was reading the other day, I had come across, I think this is from Billy Graham devotion that I had. It says, this is from 2 Corinthians, it says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves received from God. If we are comforted, it is for our comfort, which produces in you patient endurance of the same suffering we suffer." And I just think that that's just, again, one of those things that is just so key, is that, through our pain, through our experiences and stuff, we can, hopefully reach out and help others, And, I was thinking, too, of another, I'd say maybe piece of advice for somebody that knows somebody who's going through something, grief or whatever. It's like, don't ask, what can I do for you? Can I this? Just do it. Bring a meal. Take the kids.
Send a text.
Yeah, just do. I had, people that, come bring a meal over. Even through COVID, with the loss of my father-in-law, here's a doorstep meal for you, and if you have kids, can I take your kid? Or not even ask, just do it, just because I will not say, yes, I need you to help me. Yes, I could, do that. So I think just doing for others and just listening, like we were saying too.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, I don't ask for help.
Right.
I'm horrible. I'm a horrible person.
I'm the same.
I'm
way.
horrible.
Yeah. I don't want to impose.
Exactly. I'll do it myself.
Right.
The biggest help for me as a person who doesn't ask for help is I have adult children, and my children know me, and so my daughters, especially my son, was out of the state. He was in. I was already based, but my daughters just came and did. They came and cleaned. They came and cooked. They stayed with me. While I took care of my mom, they took care of their mom, which I'm so grateful for. My husband was another, he took care of, he lost his mother when he was 15, so he knew what that was like to go through the loss of a parent. But again, when I was looking at the one question, and I'll probably get to that, but what people did, like you said, what people did for you. Just a simple text saying, I know this is the first holiday, whatever the holiday it is. This one was Father's Day. I know this is the first Father's Day without your father. I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. And I will say our lead pastor's wife, I don't know if I can say your name or not, but has been amazing this last year, because she lost her mother just before I lost my dad. And just she will say, hey, I read this devotional, help me, here it is. Yeah. And just those texts coming up on my phone are just like, just like a soothing, refreshing, soothing to my heart.
Feels love.
Yes.
Feels love.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Somebody cares. Somebody's thinking.
Yeah. Or just my friends who said, hey, let's go out. I know it's your dad's birthday and you can't be together with your family like you want it to be. Yeah. Let's go out for supper. One of my best friends did that. I mean, little things. And I think when you the people closest to you who know those little things, if you can just step in, like you said, don't ask, just do. Just call and say, hey, I know it's your dad's birthday today. You guys have planned to be together as a family, but because of COVID, you can't. Let's go out to eat. Huge.
Yeah. It's those little things that really can mean a lot.
They go a long way.
Yeah. The cards. I can't part with the cards. I haven't been able to part with the cards yet.
I still have cards from my mom.
Okay.
And
I don't know. And the other fun, when you're talking about deliveries, one of my friends had those strawberries that are dipped, the hand dipped Sherry's berries.
Oh yeah.
They showed up at my house, and I'm like going, oh bless you. After Christmas, we don't need any more goodies.
Yeah.
But the little things. Yeah. You don't have to come in and clean my house. You don't have to come and do all these things. But just let me know that I'm in your thoughts. And so that has been a big thing for me to be more intentional with my friends that are hurting.
Yes.
And I think maybe if there's one positive that's come in this and all this is myself being more intentional when I hear that other people are hurting over losses, where before it was kind of like, oh, I'm so sorry, here's a car. And that's kind of where it ended. Where now I'm like, here's a delivery. I mean, a simple delivery. Right. You know.
Yeah, I was watching an interview, and the guy said, I wish that when I lost the person that I had a scar so that people would remember to keep asking me about it, because time goes by and people stop telling stories and stop asking how you are. And so he said that's something that he would like people to do, because people wonder, should I mention them? Am I supposed to say their name? Can I use the word died? Like, you know, and they're like, it makes me sad when they stop talking about it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I thought that was interesting, because I, sometimes like don't want to, ask my dad, how are you doing with your mom's loss, 1 year ago, and but it might make him sad that no one talks about it anymore.
I have a family member who I was really, really close to, and she would never talk about Jenny. She didn't want for me to remember, or me to be sad, or me to, and it's like, wait a minute, I know of this loss. I feel this loss. So you bring it up, is it going to remind me? Please, let's talk about Jenny. Let's tell stories. Let's laugh.
It's like people think you're going to forget that person. Right. That was such a huge part of your life. Like, I'm not going to forget them. So let's laugh over it together. Yeah. We laugh over the funny things my dad did. Yeah. We laugh over his opinions. What would he have thought about this? Well, I'd like to get Dad's opinion on this.
You know, and it's like, the scar, which you don't see it, but the scar is there. Healing does help move you forward, but the scar is always there.
Always, I know. What's that?
I believe it.
Been an hour.
I'm sure.
Well, and we went through a bunch of the stuff, and you guys already mentioned kind of about what good has come out of it. And I thought it was interesting in reading about this, talking about Jesus' grief, that he went away by himself when Lazarus died, but the people were still wanting to hear from him and talk to him, and so he told the disciples, bring them. So then he did still share and encourage them, and whatever the third thing was, it was like, then you help others. So, you kind of mentioned some good that had come out of it, being able to empathize more with people. Stronger faith.
Stronger faith from family members. Was really good. So, try to remember those good things.
But the memories are hard. It's how hard when like for me, it always pops into my head is that last vision of my dad. As he stopped breathing. I'm like, okay, why can't I go and remember the few days before when I talked with him? You know?
Yeah. Those are pretty vivid, those memories. But I try to replace those memories with Jenny, what she'd always hug me and say, I love you, Mom. Yeah. And I can just see that, and I can just hear that. It's like,
and that's what, we had a puppy. She was hyper puppies. Puppies are always hyper. But we'd take her down to my dad's and she would lay right next to him, right on him, right. Just lay there. We have so many pictures of her laying under his chair, laying on his lap, laying beside the bed when he was bedridden. And again, she was less than a year old, and or turning a year. But she brought him so much comfort at that last little bit. So those are what I try to remember. I try to remember her coming up to him and things like that.
When I brought my son home and I would put him to bed for his naps, I would always, just looking at him, it was just, people would say to me, oh, you did such a good thing in adopting him. And I'm like, no, it's what he did for me. And I would put him down for naps and I would just stare at his little face. And I would take my hand and I would just rub the side of his face. And then he'd fall off to sleep. I do that at night and for his naps. But I'll never forget the one afternoon that I put him down for a nap. And I was doing that, and then I stopped, and he looked like he was about ready to fall asleep, and he rolled over and looked straight at me. And he took his little hand, and he did this to my face. And it was the first time I heard him say, I love you, Mommy. Because he didn't speak English. He was learning English. But that's what he did. He stroked my face. And the tear, I had to turn because I didn't want to upset him. But it was, I just was so grateful. I mean, it was like, wow, I'm a mom. And I still have that first Mother's Day gift that my girlfriend gave me, And unfortunately, my mom passed away before I could, she knew about the adoption, and she had a grandma's brag book, which I found when we cleaned out her apartment. But, I know that her and my dad, they saw it from heaven. And I feel their presence every day.
Well, we will pray, but I want to mention too, I think these ladies are willing, if anyone wants to talk a little bit more, we can connect you. But then also let you know that we have spiritual friendships at New Hope, kind of one-on-one mentoring relationships. You go through, kind of meet weekly and go through a different story from the Bible each week, and that's something that we try not to just throw people together, but people who have similar stories, one who's been in this position before, kind of guiding the other one, and the goal, the prayer is that you would be in a relationship kind of as the mentee for that year, and then that you would, kind of take someone else under your wing. And so that's something I think if you're really struggling and that sounds like, oh, you need a person like that, let us know. You can send me an email or a message or anything social media comes to me, so whatever you send. But just an encouragement too, to make sure that you don't become a recluse and wallow and hurt and push it down. But if you want to talk to anybody, I'm here too. We have 5 pastors and people who want to talk with you about it. So don't be afraid to reach out from that. We have some very nice things coming in. Thank you for you guys. Thank you for sharing in your honesty. So I think we're going to pray. I wanted to share this one verse, Lamentations 3:20-22. I will never forget this awful time as I grieve over my loss, yet I dare to hope when I remember this. The faithful love of the Lord never ends, his mercies never cease. Amen. All right. Father God, we thank you so much for this time together, a time that you've brought together these women who have experienced loss but also experienced your hope. And so we pray that you would use this time, people who are watching now, people who are listening later, that you would use it to minister to them and encourage them, God. And we just pray that, I'll just say a soothing balm, like a cream over any wounds, God, that people who are hurting right now, that you would just bring a healing there to that wound, that you would calm it and just bring a peace. Even now that they would feel a sense of your presence with them.
And so we just give you so much praise, God. We join with the angels and we just say that you are holy and you are worthy, and we worship you. And so thank you so much for this time together, and be with us as we go. We just praise you. In your name, amen. All right, and next week we have 3 ladies coming to talk about their experience with abortion. 2 ladies who've experienced one themselves, and then Gina Kennedy from Pregnancy Resource Center will also be here. And so we'll be talking about those experiences and the church's response to those situations. So we hope you'll join us again next week. Thank you.